Hello, welcome to the makeup training for Royal Family Kids Club. I'm Sven, co-director currently for the Royal Family Kids Club program at Evangel Temple. And what we're about to go through over the next 4 videos are the training presentations that you have to go through, both new and returning volunteers, in order to participate in Royal Family Kids Club. So anyway, as we get into it, there will be some things that I show you that you should have gotten a link with these videos to a Google Drive. So I guess maybe real quick before we jump into the videos, let me start by showing you what is in that Google Drive folder. So, and if you're watching this in a year other than 2022, it might be slightly different, some of the things that you see here. I'm trying to make this video so that we can reuse it in future years. So you might have some slight changes. For example, the curriculum might look slightly different. But let me just show you here. So you should have gotten a link in the email that takes you to a Google Drive folder that looks just like this. So you can see you have the training packet here. If we open that, let's take a look at that. This is the packet that was given to everybody that showed up in person. You can see here the things that we're going to be going through today is the Intro to Group Mentoring Club. I'm going to tell you a little bit about this activity and ask you to do it on your own. Adjusting camp rules. We'll skip the game. Trust you, you can play that game by yourself, I suppose, if you wish. Ministering closer to home. We'll do a presentation on that. And then we'll do an overview and the club walkthrough, and then yeah, I think that's everything. So hopefully this isn't going to be too long. I do need you to watch through all the videos. But yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. So we've got the presentations, and again, if you need to refer to the slides, I went ahead and put those in here for you. This here, I'll reference throughout some of the videos, is the curriculum. So let me just open this up for you so you can see it. This year, what we're doing is Ultimate Superhero. So the theme is that Jesus is our ultimate superhero, and so every month you'll see, oh, whoops. Let's open this back up. Every month, you can see in this curriculum, it's going to give you basically what we're supposed to do that month. So now we don't exactly copy the curriculum, but some of the things we will use. For example, here's some ideas for music. If you're doing music, here's some ideas for games or icebreaker games to do with the kids. If you're the coach and you're in charge of doing something like that. There's also the Bible story, and the for each month they also include let me scroll a little bit back up here. So for the first month, for example, and we'll get back into this a little bit more later, Jesus has ultimate power. So again, just wanted to show you what this is. A couple other things. Mentoring Club Staff Manual. So one of the forms that I am going to need you to fill out and sign for me is this commitment form right here, basically saying that you've received this manual. We're going to cover everything in this manual during this training, along with the new person training if you're brand new to club. But I am going to ask you to print off this page and sign it for me, and I will have these printed copies of these available at the first club. So if you don't want to mess with printing it off, just make sure that you kind of skim through this manual, and be able to sign that at the first club, because I have to have this form before you participate in the ministry. And then finally, here's the PDF for the When I Was 10 exercise. So when it's time for that, and I'll refer you over to this, that's where you can find that. So anyway, enough about that. Let's go ahead and get into our first presentation, which is just an overview of group mentoring. But before we talk about that, let me share this Bible verse with you, which I think is relevant and encouraging as you prepare to embark on this year of ministering to foster kids. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 58 says, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." And I chose this verse because I just want to recognize and encourage your willingness to commit that extra portion of your time to ministering to these kids. I know that the school year is busy for most of us. We've usually got stuff going on the weekends, and if you don't, you probably might wish to use those Saturdays for rest, but you're willing to sacrifice one Saturday a month to show up and minister to these kids who've had a hard life and who are maybe still having a hard life. And that matters, that's important. And so I really appreciate in this verse it says, always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that it's not in vain. And so I just want to call out that that's what you are doing by participating in Mentoring Club this year. You are giving yourself fully to the work of the Lord, knowing that it's not in vain. So I appreciate that, I recognize that, and I believe God does too. And so maybe with that, it would be good for us to go ahead and open in prayer and then get into this training. Heavenly Father, God, we just thank you for the opportunity to minister to these kids. God, we pray that we would use the time that you've given us with them wisely in a way that impacts them and shows them more about you. God, let these months of RFK Club be a blessing to the kids and to us as well, and help it to draw all of us closer to you and honor you and glorify you. It's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen. Okay, so first, let's start with mission and purpose. And perhaps even before that, let me just give you a brief description of what Club is. If you were at camp, you've probably already heard me talk about sort of what Club is, and hopefully you sort of remember some of that. But just in case, the way it works is basically once a month, we are going to be doing a sort of mini camp, and that's what we call RFK Club. So the kids will show up at Evangel Temple. We will do breakfast, we'll do activity center, we'll have games, we'll do songs and Bible stories and worship. Basically, we're going to take all the stuff that we did at camp, what might have been a normal day at camp, we're going to kind of squeeze it down to a Saturday morning so that the kids can have this sort of mini camp experience every month during the school year. This year, we're going to be running from September through April. I suspect that's what we'll do in future years as well, but either way, that's what we're doing this year. So it's once a month, and we're doing second Saturdays of every month. And we'll get a little bit more into what specifically we do at the club in the later slides where we do the club overview. But for now, just wanted to make sure that you understand sort of what the model is. We are just doing that mini camp sort of once a month. That's the way I think of it. So who are we? Who is the Royal Family Kids organization? What are we doing sort of acting on their behalf? Well, who we are is defined by who they are, they being the kids. Now, if you skip back here, and this is why I really like this RFK logo, if you skip back here, you can see the person in the middle. So it looks like a crown, but really it's three people. It's the person in the middle and two other people on the sides, and they're all holding hands. And of course, reminds you of the counselor with two kids. And that's what we're all about, is treating these kids of abuse like children of God. So again, the reason that we're willing to take one Saturday a month to minister to these kids, the reason that we're willing to go and do a week of camp or track or whatever the case may be, is because we recognize that these kids that the world has forgotten about, that the world has mistreated or treated unfairly, we recognize them that just like us, they're part of God's royal family. They are children of God, and therefore they deserve this royal treatment, or we want to honor them royally. So as part of God's royal family, we're trying to, be ambassadors of that message, and show them God's goodness and show them their heavenly King. So, just remember that this isn't a small thing. This is the whole reason that we do what we do, is that we recognize that these kids are made in God's image just like us, and that God loves them just like us. And so it's important, it's valuable, it's worthy, even when we're ministering to just a few kids. Each one of those kids is a royal prince in God's kingdom. And so every minute matters with them. So just want to really emphasize that right up front. So a little bit more about sort of the other side, the practical side. Royal Family Kids developed the unique model of combining a one-week residential camp with an ongoing mentoring club. Camps and clubs are built to be a continuum of service to children. So let me just take a moment to talk a little bit about that continuum of service idea. Basically, what makes clubs so special is that we are building on relationships with kids. So when kids come to camp, they might not know us from Adam, but when they go to camp and they have that week, that experience there, they build very positive relationships. They have a blast, they have fun, and they meet most of the volunteers that they will see at club. We might have some new volunteers that haven't done camp, but most of our club volunteers come from camp. And the things that we do at club are purposefully, intentionally meant to remind the child of camp. So we're not starting from zero when we start that first club Saturday at the beginning of the school year. We're building on the relationship that we made at camp, excuse me. So again, there's this continuum of service that's really important and is sort of the linchpin of why club works so well. Royal Family Kids mentoring clubs are designed to sustain relationships with children of abuse. And maybe I should just pause for a moment here to fill you in. If you're watching this and some things, for example, here talking about Royal Family Kids mentoring clubs. Technically, the name of our program is Royal Family Kids Group Mentoring Club. That's the program that we do. Previously, before 2020, we used to offer one-on-one mentoring as part of our program. And so that's why it was called Mentoring Club, is because there was this sort of dual ministry of one-on-one mentors, similar to counselors at camp, and then the rest of the staff would kind of support them at these once-a-month get-togethers. So the mentors would have to do, their one-on-one mentoring outside the club and then come once a month. And basically, a couple of reasons that we switched away from that. COVID was part of it, but more than that, it's just that the one-on-one model, just every time that we would do it, it just doesn't quite make sense because we emphasize too deep so much then to facilitate one-on-one time with a child. That just felt a little bit strange. But on top of that, if we include mentorship, then we're always going to be limited to how many kids we can take based on how many mentors we have sign up. And so if we might, want to invite 15, 20 kids, or there might be 15 or 20 kids who would be interested in coming to club or participating. But if we only have 7 mentors, then that's it. That's how many kids we can take, So, and on top of that, the national office sort of advised us that as time goes on, it probably less and less churches are going to offer the one-on-one, not because of those other reasons that I listed, but actually because the insurance doesn't want to cover one-on-one ministries in that way. So anyways, if you see some references to mentoring club, those might be a little bit antiquated. The way I just refer to it anymore is RFK Club, and that's the once-a-month meeting, so basically we're just keeping the mini camp part of that. So anyway, if you see some of that stuff referenced in these slides, that might be what it's referring to. But let's keep going. Who we are. So here we're going to talk through sort of the vision, mission, purpose, and strategy is the other one for Royal Family Kids as a whole. So first, the vision for Royal Family Kids as a whole is that every foster child ages 6 to 12 experiences a life-changing camp and club. So that's so just to clarify this a little bit, vision, when I think of that, it's like, what does it look like for this ministry to be successful? Like the final success of this ministry, when we've done everything that we're supposed to do, what does that look like? Well, that's the vision. Every foster child aged 6 to 12 experiences a life-changing camp and club. Now, is that ever going to happen? But don't know. But that's the goal. That's what we're striving for. That's the vision of, if we've, we'll know that we've done everything that we can do when this is accomplished. The mission, why we're doing this, is to create life-changing moments for children of abuse. The purpose, mobilize the faith community to confront child abuse. So that's kind of RFK's purpose. That's sort of what they're trying to do. We are the faith community being mobilized, so our purpose is going to be a little bit different. I'll get to that in a second. And the strategy for RFK is launch and sustain camps and mentoring clubs. So that's sort of the how that they're accomplishing their mission and vision. Now, I sort of redid this for clubs specifically, and so let's go through these again and see if we can see some differences. First, vision, if we've done club well, then here's what it's going to look like. Every child who participates in club is shown the love of Christ. That's our vision, that every child who signs up for this year is shown the love of Christ and knows the love of Christ by the end of the year. Our mission is to create life-changing moments for children of abuse. That's the same as the national office. It's the same as sort of the big picture mission. We're still working on that mission. We're just doing it in clubs. The purpose of club is to sustain positive relationships with as many campers as possible, or as are able, throughout the school year. So that's why we're doing clubs specifically. And then the strategy, the way that we're doing that, sort of the how, is that we're going to host these safe and fun meetings every month that remind kids what they learned and felt at camp. And I do just want to pause on that, because not only are we going to be reminding the kids of the things that they learned about Jesus, the Bible stories that we talked about at camp, some of the lessons that we talked about at camp. So they're going to be reminded what they learned. But also, the reason that we try to structure club in a way that it feels like a mini camp is because we want to preserve that feeling that the kids got at camp too. So that if you sort of think about the transition that you observed in the kids at camp over the week of camp, they come in on Monday, they're maybe a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous. Some of them are kind of looking down. They're not, not sure what to expect. But by the end of the week, gosh, all the, smiling faces, eyes filled with happiness and love. We want to keep that feeling. We want to tap back into that feeling for the kids so that when they come to club, they have those same feelings. So again, that's sort of our strategy. And who is it that we're trying to minister to here? Again, just to be clear, these are abused and neglected children from ages 6 to 12. We do take up to 12-year-olds for club, who have attended Royal Family Kids camps the summer before attending club, or their foster siblings. So again, you might see some faces at club that you don't recognize from camp. Well, that's probably because they're foster siblings in the same home. So, for example, last year, we had some extra spots available for the amount of staff that we had. So a couple foster moms requested if we'd be able for their siblings to come too. And we said, yeah, sure, of course, we'd be happy to do that. We have the space and the volunteers to support that. And it ended up being such that those kids that we allowed to come to club who hadn't been to camp before got to come to camp the next year. So again, we're building on the relationships at camp. We might have some new faces, but almost all the kids are going to be from camp, and you'll recognize them from there. Again, just as I said before, we're building on established trust with these kids. Values of Royal Family Kids. Let's talk through these real quick. Just reminding you of these things. Probably learned these in camp training, but still going over them again. Treat people royally. That's number one value. Think about what that means. What does it mean to treat people royally? Well, it means that we're remembering that these kids that we're ministering to are made in God's image, that they are part of God's royal family. And so we want to treat people that way. But it's not just the kids that are part of God's royal family. It's us volunteers too. And so again, we're going to treat everybody royally. The next value is making moments matter, but on the slide, keep moving forward is the one that comes up. So keep moving forward. That's a sort of the third value listed here. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that while we recognize the past and we recognize the hard place that these kids have come from, we set our sights on eternity. We set our sights on the salvation that is to come. And that's sort of the big picture, but very practically speaking, we're just trying to keep these kids focused on good things, on positive things. We're moving forward. We're not going backwards. And finally, make moments matter is the other value here. And what that means, what that's talking about is just that every moment matters, or perhaps maybe a better way to frame this is that you don't quite know which moment at club is going to be the moment that makes the biggest difference. And so our goal, our job, our duty is to make every moment matter, or to treat every moment like it does matter. Again, we just don't know what these kids are absorbing, what they're picking up, which little song, which little conversation, which experience is going to be the thing that sort of sticks in their mind, sticks in their memory. So we want to treat all of these moments as if they're precious and and impactful. So again, make moments matter, treat people royally, and keep moving forward. Those are the values. Very quickly here, statement of faith. We affirm faith in God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the trustworthiness and authority of the Bible, and the value and dignity of all people, as well as our human alienation from God by sin, and our need for salvation and grace through Christ. So, again, brief word on this. Royal Family Kids, as a national organization, is not affiliated with any specific denomination. They will work with any Christian church. So that might be Lutheran, Methodist, Assemblies of Gods, like Evangel Temple, but they sort of keep this as sort of their bare minimum faith statement. So any church needs to be able to attest to this faith statement, and then anything additional that goes into sort of denomination-specific things is up to the church. But this is Royal Family Kids' own statement of faith. Operational model. Again, this is stuff that's covered in the manual, and so I'm including it in here because again, I'm trying to show you everything that's in the manual here so that you don't have to actually read that thing. So it's not really relevant to us actually carrying out this ministry, but it's good to just sort of recognize this. Royal Family Kids Club has to operate a little bit in each one of these models. So you can see here it's sort of a triple Venn diagram of church model, government model, business model. And I saw there was a sort of a quote in the manual to describe this, and it says, the Lord looks at the heart, the government looks at the paperwork, and the business looks at the results. And so, again, Royal Family Kids, we're doing all three of those things. And another sort of way they explain it is with this purple cord idea. So this is black and white, you can't see it, but pretend this line going around these four entities is purple. That's supposed to be Royal Family Kids, and it sort of encapsulates and necessitates working with each four of these entities. So the four entities that Royal Family Kids has to work with for us to do what we want to do is the local church, so that's Evangel Temple in this case, and we depend on the local church for volunteers, so and for actually running and sort of doing the work of running the ministry. We also depend on social services because they provide us with the children. So without being able to work with social services, again, we'd never be able to take on many of these kids are wards of the state. And so again, we have to be able to work with social services. The business or civic community, where does that come in? Well, a lot of the financial backing that allows us to do this ministry year after year after year without any cost to either kids or volunteers. So the kids all get to come for free. Same with club. There's absolutely zero charge. They get tons of cool stuff. They get to participate. We feed them every month. All this stuff. Well, it doesn't just come out of thin air. That's raised through fundraising and through donations from the church, but also some from the business community, and then the facilities of the location. So again, in that case, in our case that would be still Evangel Temple because we're holding our club at Evangel Temple. But at camp, of course, it wouldn't be Evangel Temple. It'd be the ranch. So. And then that's all the stuff. That's not Royal Family providing any of that. That's all other entities providing these things. And again, Royal Family Kids kind of brings it all together to actually carry out the ministry. And they provide the training, the resources, the support, and the accountability, sort of the structure to make the ministry work. So again, knowing this stuff, is it really going to impact how you do club? Not really. But again, we have to cover it. It's in the manual. And it's just good stuff to know. Okay, so club overview. Let's talk a little bit more about club specifically. We've kind of gotten some of that background stuff out of the way. Club specifically. Let's see. This picture, I think I took this from the new person training, the new online training. But this really encapsulates what club is all about. You could say the same thing for camp, but really for club, I think this one hits home. We didn't realize we were making memories. We just knew we were having fun. And that's really what the club is all about. We get the kids together. It's fun. It's exciting. It's familiar for them. It's a place where they can be comfortable, where they can be amongst other foster kids. They don't have to feel like an outsider. And we just have fun. And we might not realize the impact that we're making because we're just thinking, it just looks like we're having fun. But anyway, so let's get into this a little bit more. Why mentoring clubs? First, a little bit of the research about the impact of mentoring clubs. Mentoring programs as a whole have a well-documented ability to improve the outcomes of at-risk children. So what do I mean by that? Improving the outcomes. Well, various research has been done, and I think the most noteworthy comes from Boys and Girls Clubs, who kind of conducted their own research, and they found out that when you have a child that gets involved in some sort of mentorship program, what you're going to find is that that child is going to start getting better grades, and they're going to be a lot less at risk for some of the sort of typical childhood, adolescent risks. So less likely to drink, less likely to drop out of school, less likely for a teenage pregnancy, less likely to end up homeless, less likely to drop out of school. All of these different outcomes that we are trying to avoid become a lot less likely when we get kids involved in a good mentorship program. But what was really interesting about this research is that they found that the more at risk a child is, so the more sort of factors in their life are working against them that might be pushing them towards those bad outcomes, the more at risk a child is, the bigger improvement there is in that child's life with mentoring clubs. So in other words, for a sort of a normally adjusted child who comes from a pretty stable home and isn't really at that much risk of, winding up in some of those bad situations, okay, well, by doing the mentoring program, they sort of go from not very likely to really not very likely. But when you have a kid who comes from a broken home, who has maybe drinking or drugs or something in their family, and they, are really highly at risk, well, they go through participating in these mentoring programs from being highly at risk to, almost not at risk or substantially less risk. So again, just to kind of emphasizing that the worse a child's outlook is, the more they benefit from mentoring programs. Now, what's the problem here, and this is kind of where club comes in, is that a lot of the most at-risk kids are those in the foster system. Unfortunately, there really are not other mentoring programs or club programs like ours that are able to work with kids in the foster system. It requires a special set of skills. It requires special volunteers. That's you. It requires, being able to work with caseworkers, being able to work with the state. Just remember, think back to that purple cord. Very, very few organizations are equipped to act as that cord the way that RFK is. And so, again, without club, there'd be no way for something like Boys and Girls Clubs to have these kids receive mentorship help. And in fact, I remember, when we had a foster son, he got kicked out of Boys and Girls Clubs. He couldn't, because they weren't equipped to meet his needs as a foster kid. He just had behaviors that were difficult for them to deal with. They didn't know how to keep up with his caseworker, and medications, and all these other things. So again, there's special challenges that come with trying to meet and help these most at-risk kids in the foster system. But we, as Royal Family Kids, we're equipped to do that. And so again, we're in a special place to be able to help these kids who really need it most and benefit most from it. Clinical findings. Basically, the only other thing I wanted to throw in here on the clinical findings part is that, you might think, okay, well, that's all nice with mentorship, but we're not really doing mentorship. We're doing clubs. That's a little bit of a different thing. And you're right, it is a little bit different. But what's very interesting is that psychologists found that groups are actually more effective in working with abuse survivors than one-on-one sessions. Now, we're not doing abuse survivor groups or anything like that at club, but it just goes to show that there's something sort of healthy and special about a group environment for people who have had very hard things happen to them. And so, again, the group dynamic of our club program provides that safe place, fun place. It's, again, where these kids can come and just feel normal. And that's the goal. That's what we want for them. So we got research, clinical findings. The other thing, again, we sort of already hit on this camp experience. Sort of some of the counselor and the camper roles. So some of the kids will recognize their counselor from camp or other staff from camp. So we sort of build on those pre-existing relationships. But the other thing is that we continue to build on sort of that family dynamic. So if you think about at camp, we have sort of aunt and uncle, grandma and grandpa, cousins. So we sort of make it feel like a family. Well, we get to, again, sort of carry that forward into club. Now, I don't know, we don't always have volunteers to act as grandma and grandpa or aunt and uncle or cousins. It just depends on the year. This year, I think we definitely will have cousins, and I think we'll have a grandma and a grandpa, but not totally sure. But either way, we're still working off of that camp experience and building onto it. And then the other thing that Mentoring Club offers is safety and supervision. Again, it's a way to provide these kids with the sort of help that they benefit from, the mentorship dynamic, the club dynamic. They get to benefit from that, but it's in a very safe and structured way. So again, we don't have to worry about behaviors disqualifying a child from club because, well, we're equipped to make sure those behaviors just never get out of control. So anyway, so safety and supervision, that's another important part. Key elements of club: commitment, leadership, understanding, belonging, and safe place. So C is for commitment. A foster child knows one thing about you when you walk into his or her life. Sooner or later, you will leave. Most infants in foster care move every 12 to 18 months. They have 3 homes by the time they're age 4, and older children move even more. Although we will not be committing to a one-on-one relationship with our group mentoring program, our commitment as a program is that we are here for them through the school year. Every club kid will know that these adults are committed. And that's one of the reasons, guys, why on that commitment form that you signed, maybe if you had done camp and then you're going to do club, on that commitment form I asked you to be able to say that you're going to be able to do 6 out of 8 clubs. Because I understand that real life gets in the way and Saturdays sometimes are just not available and you might have to miss 1 or 2. I get that. But it's important that we're able to show these kids, that the kids see this sort of the same faces month to month to month. And so that there's that consistency and so that they can sort of really get to know us as club volunteers and they can form special bonds and relationships that they can, again, carry over from month to month to month. So that's why I ask that you to be able to commit to at least 6. Of course, I'm not going to kick you out if you miss 3 instead of just missing 2. But you hopefully get why this is important and why we care about this is that we want these club kids to know that we care about them and that we want to commit to setting aside a Saturday to spend time with them because we want to. We might have other things going on, but they matter. They're important. So commitment. L is for leadership. We teach leadership, character, and values. We provide role models who take responsibility, whether that's through the Bible story, the historical heroes that we tell them about from the Bible, and staff. And we provide ways for club kids to take leadership and responsibility in the group. So again, just sort of emphasizing leadership in general on multiple fronts, both by teaching it, modeling it, and giving them opportunities to express it themselves. U is for understanding. All of our volunteers sort of get where foster kids are coming from. Some of us through experience, but hopefully most of us through just the training that we've gotten. So child abuse training and camp experience, and that we work as a team to create an understanding environment. These kids are used to being the outsiders wherever they go. They're used to feeling like they don't fit in with their friends at school or like they have to work extra hard to fit in. We want club to be a place where they get to be themselves and they don't have to feel like an outsider because we understand them. We see them. We anticipate their struggles and we accept them. We don't view them as problem children or anything like that. We view them as royalty, right? So again, understanding is very important. B is for belonging. Again, there's something special about, and why I like the name Royal Family Kids Club, because that way it's like these kids get to really feel like they're a part of something special. Clubs, it just has that sort of exclusive feeling. Oh, I get to be a club kid. I'm part of Royal Family Kids Club. I have my club meeting this Saturday. It's just a fun thing to sort of think about, and we want to give those kids that sort of special something that they belong to. So again, it's a place where they feel like they belong, where they are understood, and that's very cool. But the other thing too, and that's why on the slide it says belongings is the other part of club, and that's because we're going to be giving them some cool stuff as throughout the school year, whether it's Christmas presents at Christmas or Easter eggs at Easter or whatever the case may be. May have some other special little trinkets that they get over the course of time. But let's see. It says here, you lose your stuff in foster care. I had one box of pictures and things left from growing up that the group home said they would keep for me, but they lost it. And this is a quote from a 19-year-old emancipated youth. That is a very real problem. I won't spend too much time harping on it, but if you've ever worked with foster kids outside of camp or club, as maybe a CASA worker or something like that, that is kind of a recurring theme, is that they don't get to keep their possessions, especially for any kids who've been through a residential. Residential centers are notoriously bad at keeping track of kids' belongings. And, part of it is that they just don't have the room. I mean, you just at a residential to store every child's all of their belongings. But part of it too is just that things get lost, and there's not a real care to preserve every child's belongings. So again, some things that are important in the Bible that demonstrate why belongings are important to a person: Joseph's coat, Samuel's annual little priest outfit made by Hannah, new clothes for festivals. So these are just examples of touchstone objects is what they call them. But again, these are just sort of things that are important to a person biblically. S is for safe place. And this is both for kids. Of course, we emphasize that a lot, and we'll talk more about club rules in the next presentation. But it's also for adults. Keep rules and don't permit abuse or bullying. So we're making it safe for the kids. And let's see, foster care and friendship. Not sure what that's about. But safety for adults too. We want to keep it a safe environment for the kids, but we also want to keep it a safe environment for adults. So we're going to support each other. We're going to work as a team. And it says, let us not become weary of doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. The reality is that when you work with wounded children, when you are working with these kids from abusive backgrounds or neglectful backgrounds, just kids who have experienced massive amounts of suffering in their life, it can be kind of a dangerous thing. For one, there's just the emotional cost of bearing some of those burdens. I mean, you're never going to bear the burden in the same way that the child does, but sort of secondhand, hearing some of the stories that you're going to hear, getting to know these kids and knowing them to be innocent, and yet also knowing what they've experienced, it weighs on you. It's a hard thing. So yes, it's dangerous, but also, this isn't as big a deal for us because we're not doing one-on-one mentoring, so we don't have to be quite as sort of alerted to these things. But kids who've learned to survive difficult situations may have done that by learning to be manipulative. Additionally, we as volunteers might burn out, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when we're talking about ministering closer to home. But again, we're trying to make this a safe and rewarding environment for the adults too. So we're going to work against burnout, and I as club leadership and we want to support you too. Okay, so that's the end of. I'm going to have you do this exercise here in just a moment, but let me just finish up with these other Bible verses that I had for you at the end here. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6. I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. I'm going to talk to you about this in just a second. Life-changing things happen at inconvenient times. So again, both of these, the Bible verse and then this quote here, the reason that I put them here is because two reasons. For one, life-changing things happen at inconvenient times. So again, this sort of goes back to, I understand that coming in on a Saturday is not always going to be what you want to do during the school year. And while I appreciate your enthusiasm right now, hopefully as you're watching this, you're feeling eager and excited to start club, the reality is that I would bet that at least one of the 8 months between now and when we finish this program at the end of the school year, you might be thinking, man, I just kind of would rather do anything else but go into club this morning. And I just want to tell you, for one, it's okay to feel that way. That's part of burnout, and that's one of the things that we have to work against. But two, I give you this quote as just a reminder that that life-changing things happen at inconvenient times. And so I just, maybe that can be a good thing to bear in mind if you ever are feeling a little bit burnt out, feeling like you don't want to be here. Just remember, there's life-changing things happening at these club meetings. And then this one, sort of coming back to this Bible verse, and this will take us right into our When I Was 10 exercise. I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. This is just reminding you that we don't fully know what our job is with these kids. We have been entrusted with our club kids for the school year. We are going to minister to them to the best of our abilities. We're going to love on them to the best of our abilities. But we don't quite exactly know what God is going to do with our love or with our ministry in the lives of each of these kids. Our job is to obey. Our job is to be faithful. Our job is to do the ministry. But it might be that we're just planting seeds. We might not see the fruit from the seeds that we plant. And even if we do, it might not be in this school year. It might not be till camp next year. Anybody, if you've done camp for a number of years, if you've done camp for, I would say, at least 6 years, that's enough time that you've seen a whole, a child might have started your first year as a 7 or 8-year-old, and you've seen them all the way through to when they graduate as an 11-year-old. You know firsthand that the biggest change, while yes, we see a big change during the week of camp, we see a big change maybe over the course of a year in club, but really it's when you compare the 7-year-old to the 11-year-old that you see that you oftentimes see the biggest change, the most remarkable change. So again, just bear in mind, it's not our job to reap a harvest. It's our job to plant a seed, and ultimately we're trusting God to have sort of the final say on what the process is and what the plan is. So we're just faithful servants to the Lord, ministering to His forgotten royal kids. So with that, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do this exercise, the When I Was 10 exercise. So let me go ahead and pull this up for you here and just walk you through it. So this is you should have this PDF, and remember I already showed this to you at the beginning. These first 2 pages, you don't have to print these out, and you don't have to print this out either. But basically, what I want you to do is I want you to think of someone that was older than you, other than your parent, who was in your life around the age of 10 or around 5th grade. This is someone who spent time with you or someone who you really appreciated, somebody who just stood out to you in some way around that time of your life. So this could be a grandparent, it could be an older sibling, it could be a teacher, a coach, an aunt or an uncle. And then what I want you to do is I just want you to write down sort of who this person is, and I want you to write down 3 reasons that they stood out to you, or why, what made them someone that you remember. And so pause the video, do that, and then start it, and I want to tell you a little bit about this. Okay, so I'll give you a second to pause. Okay, now, I'm going to assume that you've done this exercise now. I want to just talk to you a little bit about it. For me, let me just share my example. For me, there was a wrestling coach when I was around this age, ending elementary school, beginning of middle school. And I still remember his name, Coach Rubin. And he stands out to me. The things that I remember about him is that he took time. I was a bit of a bigger kid, you might say, and would have been the heavyweight of the kids' weight classes. And Coach Rubin was also a big guy, but he was a very, very good wrestler. And he wrestled in college and really knew his stuff. Well, he kind of spotted me and sort of picked me out of the kids in the class or whatever it was. And he just was always would sit down and he would make sure that I was understanding the moves, or like if we were learning a wrestling move, he might come over and say, oh, hey, this is going to be a little bit, the way that I do this is, this way, because, being a bigger guy, I can't quite do it the way that he's showing you, but here's something that you can do instead. Or, it just stuff like that. He, offered to help me out, or to get me a snack from the vending machine or something like that. Just really always made me feel like he cared, and he took special time to work with me, and it was just friendly and nice, and yeah. And so now you think about that, and I'm willing to bet that maybe the person that you picked has some similarities there. Some similarities that when we did this at training, the things that sort of stuck out is that these people probably made you feel like they really liked you, or at least that they really cared about you specifically. They may have taught you something valuable that you wouldn't have learned otherwise, that you needed somebody to sort of sit down and teach you. A lot of times, the thing that sort of showed you what this person, why this person cared about you, or proved that they cared about you, is that they were just willing to spend time with you specifically, and it seemed that they cared about spending time with you specifically. Now, the other thing I always like to ask with this exercise is, did you, to this person, ever say thank you to this person that you're thinking of? Did you ever tell them what an impact they made on your life? Now, for some of you, the answer is going to be yes, but for a lot of you, the answer might be no. I know for me, I never told Coach Ruben how much I appreciated him taking time to work with me, or just the impact that he made on me, or how, that he just, restored some of my confidence, anything like that. Now, he still very much did those things, but I didn't tell him that. All that to say, why I point that out is just to go back to this Bible verse that we shared here. I planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. So we might not get the thank you from these kids. We might not get the thank you from the caregivers. But don't for a minute let that convince you that nothing's happening or that you're not making an impact. Similarly, think about the things that made that person you thought of sort of stand out to you as an impact and influence on your life. Is there any way that you can bring those same sort of things to club? And again, I hope the answer is emphatically yes. We can show kids that we care about them simply by spending time with them. You can, if you feel sort of a special bond with a kid, don't feel like you need to, be fair to every other kid. It's okay to sort of lean into that special bond with that kid and just let them know that, hey, I do have a bit of a special relationship with you, and I do care about you, and yeah, I'm happy to sit by you and do the activities with you and whatever. That's okay, okay? Because, again, it's fine to make these kids feel special. It's a good thing. And we're going to trust God one way or another. So anyway, all that to say, and maybe that's the opposite. Maybe if you don't feel like you had a special bond with any of the kids, you might feel like, oh, what am I even doing here at club? But again, I just remind you, you don't know the impact you're making, but trust me, you are making an impact. Whether you get that special bond with a kid or not, you're making an impact. So anyway, that'll do it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one where we talk about the rules. Yay! So see you there.